Hi there, Stephen Lewis. I figured I'd let this digest for a little bit, but now sounds like a good time to talk a little Obi-Wan Kenobi. Please follow all the social links right there at Stephen Lewis on the air. And as we get started, I don't think it gets more American pop culture than Star Wars. It's been going strong for a lot of years now. And I think the problem that a lot of us have, especially the diehard Star Wars fan base, is we tend to expect just a little bit too much. And it probably started back in 99 with the prequels. There was 20-something years of hype. There was no way that it was ever going to live up to that. It's just impossible. And when the prequels came out, it was George Lucas's own story. So fast forward to the Disney sequels, and I think Phantom Menace, despite many believing it was a carbon copy of A New Hope, I think a lot of people had high expectations and even higher hopes with the way that turned out. Most of the three sequel films, Phantom Menace tends to be the one that most people agree that they like, and they kind of wanted to see where the story goes. And then with The Last Jedi, obviously things got off course, and this isn't a discussion of The Last Jedi. I'm not a fan of it, but that's a rant for a completely other day. And ever since then, the fan base has become a little bit too toxic. If it's not exactly what you want, you get upset. The one thing that people have wanted to see for a while now, though, was Obi-Wan Kenobi, because everybody wanted to know, what's this guy doing? Was he just sitting in the desert for 18 years watching Luke from a distance? Of course not. You got to think over the course of almost 20 years, the guy's going to have an adventure or two. So let's get into this, talk about the things that worked really well, talk about some high expectations, and then talk about a few things that, even though I overall liked this series, it did fall short in a couple of avenues. So jumping right in, let's start with where we find Obi-Wan. He's 10 years removed from the events of Revenge of the Sith, and he's in a dark place. He's sleeping in a cave. He's kind of watching Luke from a distance. He's got a meaningless job cutting meat out of an alien, and he just doesn't do much. He's the shell of what he used to be. He's kind of shut himself off from the Force, which I suppose is a little bit of a nod to The Last Jedi. But I think a lot of that comes from the fact that he's kind of terrified if he uses the Force, because you see that the disturbance and stuff when other Force users feel it, and he doesn't want to be found out because he's got one mission, and that is to protect the son of Anakin Skywalker. So we see a very dark, non-Force using, very not Jedi-like Obi-Wan when we meet him, and we start right in with the Inquisitors looking for a Jedi. Now, if you don't know who the Inquisitors are, if you watched Rebels, these were the guys that were introduced that were they're not really full-fledged Jedi or Sith. They are, kind of Force users that the Emperor has been using to hunt down the remnants of the Jedi. So we meet a few of them, the Grand Inquisitor being one of them, and of course Reva, who's when we see the power-hungry third sister. Now, the one problem that I did have with Reva, and people were kind of complaining, you knew right away she was going to be the youngling that the show opened with. That didn't necessarily bother me, and neither did Moses Ingram's performance. I just think that there's some things with Reva's story that I didn't really vibe with, but when we see her right away, you can tell that she is not to be messed with. She has a great confrontation with Owen, and Owen, despite that confrontation, still knows what he has to do. He protects Luke, and by protecting Luke, protects Obi-Wan at the same time. So you kind of see where that uneasy relationship between Ben and Owen has come from. Now, as far as Ben goes, Owen and Ben definitely not best friends, and on the subject of the name Ben, this is not the show that Obi-Wan adopts that alias. He actually did it during the Clone Wars, an older episode of that, if you ever want to go check that out, but he does carry it over, obviously, and for obvious reasons, but there's just an uneasiness between the two of them. Owen definitely wants Ben to keep his distance. In fact, he won't even let Luke, at this time, have the little toy starfighter that he plays with in A New Hope, so nice little Easter egg there. But Obi-Wan is definitely, after seeing the Inquisitors and what they do, it kind of reinforces that he needs to stay hidden, not use the Force, not do anything. In fact, when they do come across the Jedi that they're looking for on Tatooine, he comes to Obi-Wan for help, and Obi-Wan's advice is walk out into the desert and bury your lightsaber, kind of like what Obi-Wan did. And, you see that Jedi hanged a little bit later. You don't see it happen, obviously, but you can kind of tell what happened, and Obi-Wan stood by and did nothing. And a lot of people were upset about that because they're like, man, Obi-Wan, why didn't he do anything? Because he had one mission. And that mission was to stay secret and make sure Luke Skywalker grows up and stays secret as well. It's not until he gets contacted by Bail Organa, because we get to meet a young Princess Leia in this. And fantastic job casting young Leia. And there was a lot of it I liked about it. What was the one thing that could bring Obi-Wan off Tatooine? Well, you got to protect the other Skywalker child. When she gets kidnapped with a nice cameo by Flea, and it's all Reva's doing, it does lure Obi-Wan off-world, and we get to visit some cool new planets. We get to see Obi-Wan not quite in tune with the Force, but he definitely decides reluctantly to go after Leia. Obviously, the cool moment where he digs up both his old lightsaber and the Skywalker lightsaber that he will eventually give to Luke, and sets off to not necessarily be a Jedi, but to bring young Leia Organa home. And you can kind of see during that whole procedure where he gets her out of entrapment and goes on the run, that he's just not quite in tune with the Force. His skills are not necessarily up to par, that is for sure. But there's a lot of good stuff there. I mean, we see Obi-Wan using a blaster more so than a lightsaber for a while, and it kind of works as to why he's doing it. Because while Ben certainly does not ignite the old lightsaber, he does get in touch with the Force with enough time to save a young Princess Leia, who all of a sudden gets a whole new level of respect for Obi-Wan. And during this, we get to see a little more ruthlessness with Reva, and she's the one that lets Obi-Wan know that Anakin is still alive, which kind of, rattles him to the core. And those are the things that he still hasn't come to peace with. He's waking up at night, having nightmares, and everything else. The events of Revenge of the Sith and before that really bother our guy, that's for sure. They do manage to get off-world, obviously, with a little help from Kumail Nanjiani's character, the fake Jedi who uses magnets to use the Force and a pretend lightsaber and all that. I liked his character. I'm interested to see if they pick him back up in another series. Andor is set kind of right around the same time, so maybe that works. I love the quiet scenes with him and Leia on the transport where he's trying to fix her little droid that she has, and just the little interaction between them. And the scene where they're on the little skiff going through the planet when they first land, trying to find the point where they can get off, where they're just talking, and he goes into how much she reminds him of Padme, and he starts telling the story where, you as the audience know exactly what he's talking about, and she's a little lost. Some of those scenes are some of the best, and Ewan McGregor does a fantastic job with Obi-Wan Kenobi. Like, you can just, the emotion that he brings out, strong all the way through. But this, of course, leads up to us being introduced to Tarla, who at first is an Imperial officer who's actually helping Jedi get through. We get a couple of Easter eggs when they get taken to the Path, which is kind of like an underground railroad to save refugees and Jedi. But man, this is where we see Vader in full-blown Vader. When he lands with the rest of the Inquisitors and just starts walking through the town, offing people with the Force. Now, kind of like the end of Rogue One, you understand why people were so terrified of Darth Vader. Like, he is full-blown snapping necks and cashing checks, for lack of a better term. But you can tell that Obi-Wan is just horrified of what Anakin has become. And that first fight, you can see where he is completely out of practice, and Vader kind of works him over a little bit. A lot of people had issue with the flames, but that was never going to be the rematch right there. That was Obi-Wan kind of caught off guard and, not obviously in tune with the Force, and Vader just being full-blown Vader. But I did like the way that, he started burning Obi-Wan. There was some intense anger and emotion in a lot of that. And we get to see, just that side of Vader that you kind of always wanted. When A New Hope opened originally, everybody was terrified of Vader, but you never knew why until now. Between Rogue One and this show, you get the idea of exactly how much of a badass Darth Vader really is, which I thought played extremely well. And you can see that even in the Back to Tank, the scenes where Vader is doing his thing and Obi-Wan is doing his thing while he's trying to heal his burns. Just the emotion that both of them have is pretty intense. You can see where the Revenge of the Sith moments didn't leave either one of them. Obi-Wan's haunted by it, but Vader is equally haunted by it, just from their own certain point of view. And knowing that both of them are still disturbed, we're leading up to something pretty cool. A lot of people also had issue with the segment where he breaks Leia out of Reva's captivity, and I think that I liked it because it was a lot of callbacks to A New Hope with him sneaking around the Death Star. This time around you get to see him sneaking around the Inquisitor base. People took issue with the escape by hiding her under the trench coat, but I think it was just one of those things where, hey, let's just hide in plain sight and see what happens. And for some it worked, for others it didn't, and that's cool. But I think this whole part of the show was to set up some various characters like O'Shea Jackson Jr.'s Roken character. Who does he come into play a little bit later in Andor, or is he someone that Obi-Wan might have a further adventure with? And you kind of see the birth of what will eventually become the Rebel Alliance with the Path, and kind of leading up to the way it was in Rogue One. You're starting to see a lot of these like startup groups kind of breaking away and realizing that the Empire is not that good of an entity that they want to be a part of. So you're seeing the birth of some of that kind of stuff. And I just think, if you look at the way the context fits into a bigger story, it all makes sense, and I think that's what this show did. A lot of people said, this didn't add anything, to the myth. I 1000% disagree with that. I think it added a lot to the mythos. I think you saw when they were on the transport and they were being pursued by Vader, that you knew that Obi-Wan was kind of taking a bigger look at the galaxy, that he'd kind of hidden himself for a while, especially as he was getting more and more in tune with the Force. And obviously the weight of what his failure did started to loom on him a little bit. When they land on that planet and they realize they're outnumbered and outgunned, you started to see, kind of Obi-Wan realize that there all are alternatives to fighting, kind of thing. And there were some good moments between him and Reva where he realizes that Reva was actually using Obi-Wan to lure Vader out. You see where Obi-Wan kind of flips that and goes, okay, well, I will use her to cover our escape. And I thought it kind of played well. That was the part of Reva's story that I actually did like. Clearly, we see Reva is just no match for Vader, but I loved the fight just because he just uses his hand to stop her. It was like this Bruce Lee martial arts stuff that he was doing with the Force. I'll just put my hand here and you can't do anything. Now I'll wave my hand this way, and it just showed how outclassed she truly was. What I don't get, though, is she gets run through by the lightsaber, which is the move that killed Qui-Gon Jinn, yet somehow she manages to survive it, which I don't understand, but needless to say, so did the Grand Inquisitor, because we all know that he can't die until later on in Rebels. But it just, kind of again reiterates how powerful Vader is. And I would have liked to see him take a different path with Reva's story. If you weren't going to kill her there, I'm not sure, what they ended up doing with her worked. In fact, it was probably one of the things that I did not like in the series, and it didn't work a little bit. But we do see Obi-Wan and his bunch get into space, even though they are being pursued by Vader. He kind of realizes while he's on the ship what's going on. That, we got the flashback duel of a D.H. Hayden Christensen with Ewan McGregor that kind of takes place between Revenge of the Sith and Attack of the Clones, or somewhere in that timeline. And you can see where Obi-Wan uses his anger and impatience against him, and he kind of does the same thing. He realizes that Vader is blinded by rage and just wants Kenobi, so Kenobi can let these people go away. He has a nice moment with Roken, he has a goodbye with Leia, and it all kind of makes sense for the storyline, much to the way Luke did in The Last Jedi. Obviously without the Force projection, he kind of uses himself to buy time to let everybody else escape, and you've got maybe the fact that Vader, the Inquisitor, goes, let's go after these guys, and Vader says, no, I want Kenobi, kind of partially responsible for maybe helping start the Rebel Alliance. I guess time will tell in that one, but they do land on the planet, and my god, is it the rematch of the century. I mean, full-out Force lightsaber battle from hell, and it's right up there with the Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, Darth Maul duel, right up there with the Luke Vader duel in Return of the Jedi. It is every bit badass. I mean, you see full-on Vader using the Force, throwing stuff at Obi-Wan, and the scene where he gets, there's no I've got the high ground doesn't work, but throwing Obi-Wan in the pit and covering him with rocks, and then seeing Obi-Wan just reach down and use the Force and pull him out, and then just when he gets back up and him and Vader start going at it again. I mean, a lot of people didn't like the fact that they cut away from the duel to get to what Reva was doing, but I think you needed a break from the duel. But when you put it all together, my God, it was so good. And Obi-Wan with the, levitating rocks, you just see just how strong and how powerful Obi-Wan was. And I'm glad they did it. Like, I'm glad they since the series is Obi-Wan Kenobi, I'm glad they gave Obi-Wan his moment to shine. And shine he did. The only problem that I have, and even though it looked cool in live action, when he slices through Vader's helmet, I love the scene where it's Hayden Christensen's face underneath of it, and you kind of hear Anakin's voice, and you kind of hear James Earl Jones at the same time. That was a very cool touch. The only thing about the live action helmet cut is Ahsoka did it back in the Clone Wars. Granted, it's if you didn't see the Clone Wars, then it's an awesome moment, and it still is an awesome moment. And the emotion where he just looks at him and goes, "Anakin, I'm sorry." Like, all of that, I'm like, like that was some emotional stuff right up to the point, like kind of like it was when I saw Luke at the end of Mandalorian 2. Like, legitimately emotional performance there, and it was great. Now, a lot of people go, why did they let him walk away? Why didn't he kill him again? He had 2 chances to kill Darth Vader, and he doesn't do it. So again, Obi-Wan is kind of responsible for what goes on in the galaxy. Yes, but at the same time, you kind of see that Obi-Wan, kind of like he goes back to, hey, all the Clone Wars killed all the his brotherhood of Jedi, but when the clone trooper was begging for a couple of credits to get a meal, Obi-Wan granted him, because that's the kind of guy he is. He granted mercy. Same thing with Vader, too. I mean, I liked it. I thought it was cool. And, Vader's suffering every bit of the day, just living in the suit, and Anakin is absolutely dead. And also, it's a nice nod that nobody picked up on, because a lot of people went, he got mad that Obi-Wan was a liar and said that Darth Vader killed his father. It adds more weight to that much later, and he says, what I told you is true from a certain point of view. It's right from the horse's mouth when Anakin says, you didn't kill Anakin Skywalker, I did, as Darth Vader. Darth Vader killed Anakin Skywalker, and when he calls him Darth and walks away, adds more weight to the fight in the New Hope when he says, only a master of evil, Darth. There's a lot of little stuff that when you say it doesn't do anything for the mythos, this is the stuff that makes me say, I 1000% disagree, because it all of a sudden adds more weight to a lot of things. The fact that Ben saved Leia's life, now she knows who he is when she said, oh, Ben Kenobi. And you can also see where, once again, these shows trying to make the sequel trilogy better, now you understand why all of a sudden Leia might name her son Ben. It just, all of that kind of feeds into the later mythos. I mean, again, it's going to take a lot for these shows to make the Disney sequels better, but, they are doing some cool things. But I think if you were looking for the Duel of the Century rematch, I think we got it. The only thing that I think it was lacking was maybe music. It would have been cool to hear Duel of the Fates or Battle of the Heroes or something like that behind it, but again, that's me nitpicking the overall, like, I was whoa, the entire time. Great fight, couldn't get enough of it, watched it like 3 or 4 times. But anyway, as the problem when you cut back to Reva's story, and she's going to go after Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru, and she figures out because of Bail Organa who, like, Luke Skywalker is. The tough part is, that Owen and Beru survive. Obviously, that Luke is going to survive. So I think this whole thing is what didn't work for me. Her going after Luke as some form of revenge. I get it, because she had to have her moment where she could do what Anakin didn't. I think it would have worked better if she just would have showed up, looking for Luke, and her and Obi-Wan had some form of confrontation. I don't know how you get to that point. Obviously, you wanted to turn Reva good so you can use her somewhere down the road, and I'm fine with that, because I like Moses Ingram and I like the character. I just didn't like that necessarily, that arc of the story, and I didn't think it worked. And nothing against Joel Edgerton and his, giving him something to do. I mean, we do kind of see him get the Owen limp. The other thing that bothered me was Obi-Wan senses it in the Force, which rightfully so, but he gets to Tatooine in no time, which is in the far reaches of the universe, and Reva all of a sudden does the same thing. They both get to Tatooine in no time. I just think it would have been different if, I think Obi-Wan should have got to Tatooine after his fight with Vader, and then she shows up and something happens. But again, obviously I didn't write this and wasn't asked to, so there we go. But At the end, we got a lot of fan service. You see Vader and a little Palpatine appearance, which kind of plays nicely. And I did like the fact that we finally saw the Force Ghost of Qui-Gon Jinn. And I thought the final goodbye between Leia and Obi-Wan on Alderaan was great, where he tells her a little bit about her mother and her father, which kind of gives weight to, when Luke asks her if she remembers her mother or whatever. I mean, all these little things play in, and we get to see kind of like what sets Leia on the path to be what Leia is. And obviously they didn't show any Force sensitivity there, which is probably the smart play at that point in time. But I do think you have set up the fact that why she would ask Ben or Obi-Wan Kenobi for help, and she's still keeping it secret, where I don't have to tell you that you saved my life as a child. I can go back to, in case anybody were to see this recording, oh, you knew my father during the Clone Wars, which everybody already knew. So a lot of those things play really well. The Obi-Wan costume in the end is kind of cool. It's a nod to the comic book. And you can end the series there, or you can set it up for a second season. You've got him now talking with Qui-Gon Jinn. Now that he's kind of put himself at ease with what's going on in the world, you can see where he would work on being able to become a Force Ghost, but you also get to see where this could be the path for a new adventure. Like, I think if Obi-Wan goes forward, I don't necessarily think you have to revisit the Princess Leia thing, because you've already done that, and you got to see Owen and Ben have their moment where he still can keep his distance. But I think you've also set it up to where, hey, maybe he goes to help Roken, or you hear all these names of these other Jedi that are still out there. Or maybe Obi-Wan in secret goes to do something with them, because you do have Vader out there. I don't want to see another Vader Obi-Wan rematch. I think you have to wait now for A New Hope for that. If you were going to do a Vader series, cool, keep Obi-Wan out of it. By the same token, do the same thing with Obi-Wan, keep Vader out of that. But there's a lot of different ways they could go. You could introduce a couple of other characters, maybe bring some Legends canon back into play. But either way, if this is just the story that what it is, I was pretty satisfied. I think you got to see Obi-Wan come from a dark place, and you kind of find out who he is and get himself. But you've still got, again, another 8 or 9 years that you can play with before A New Hope. So a lot can happen between then. I was a little disappointed that Tarla died. I thought it was cool the way she went out. But, I was kind of hoping that maybe there's a love interest there for Obi-Wan, and, you bring her back for a second season, and maybe he kind of helps, the path in general and does his thing. Does he show up in Andor, which is entirely possible with the time setting? Is there a way that, because Ahsoka is also alive at this time, in the next season, does Obi-Wan and Ahsoka have something going on? I think overall the story was pretty good. My question is, where was the Filoni, Favreau, and influence? I think Dave Filoni is kind of the master of Star Wars with what he did with Clone Wars, and probably the closest to Lucas we're ever going to get. I didn't really feel that touch, but I thought Deborah Chow did a great job. You didn't keep us on Tatooine the whole time. You did take us to other places, and I think, could you have told the story a little more concisely? Yeah, probably so, but I think it was a good way to build on what was already there and give more weight to some other things that we'd already seen before. So all in all, I liked it a lot. I won't say it was, everything I wanted it to be, but it was not going to be. But I think for the most part, I would totally watch another Obi-Wan series, and I thought this one was pretty good. A lot of people bag on Book of Boba Fett. My problem with Book of Boba Fett is you can't let anybody play in the Star Wars sandbox, and Robert Rodriguez, talented director, I like a lot of the stuff that he did, wasn't the right guy for Star Wars. You got a little too Spy Kidsy in certain places, and Boba Fett's biggest problem was you couldn't figure out if it wanted to be a Western or a gangster thing, and if you would have taken it off Tatooine, it probably would have played better. But again, another rant for a different story. Let me know what you thought of Obi-Wan overall. Love to hear everybody else's opinion, but like I said, as the Star Wars fandom goes, I don't think anybody's ever going to be 100% satisfied, but it was nice to see Ewan back in that role. It was nice to see Hayden back in that role. Great to hear James Earl Jones and his voice as Darth Vader again, and great to see full-blown badass Vader. So a lot more to like than dislike. In any case, speaking of likes, hit me up with a couple on the socials at Stephen Lewis on the air. Thank you for watching wherever you are, and since it is a Star Wars thing, I'll just say may the Force be with you.